When I was in high school, I was a bit clumsy because I grew too fast. So when I tried out for the basketball team, I missed a really easy shot. The basketball coach said, "I can't teach you to play ball. You're too clumsy, you're too goofy." So I focused on studying. I studied really hard and ended up skipping a year of high school to get into university, where my plan was to keep on studying really hard. But then one day, in the first week of university, I was wandering around a little bit lost, looking at my campus map, when a really tall guy stopped me and said, "I want you to try out for the rowing team." I said, "Rowing? I've never even seen a boat. And in any case, I'm a little bit clumsy." He smiled and said, "Don't worry. I had never rowed before I went to university either, but we trained really hard and we ended up winning a national championship, and I went on to compete internationally. I'm building a team here that can do the same thing if you train really hard, and I want you to be part of it." So I forgot about studying and focused on rowing. Within a few years, we also won a national championship, and I ended up competing internationally. Then when I stopped rowing, when I retired from rowing, I paused to think, how did I go from being bad to quite good at sports? The answer was obvious. The coach helped me believe in myself. I decided on a career path. I wanted to discover the scientific basis for the belief effect. Now in medicine, the belief effect is called the placebo effect. A placebo is like a sugar pill that can work because people believe it works. I've now studied the placebo for 15 years. I've done studies involving thousands of patients. I've even written a book about it. It turns out that the placebo effect is quite powerful. As powerful as most over-the-counter drugs for headaches and back pain, for example. Placebos work by triggering the body's inner pharmacy so that it produces its own pain-killing chemicals like endorphins. The word endorphin is just two words, endogenous and morphine. Endogenous means made by your body. Morphine means morphine. Take those two words, squish them together, you get endorphin. Endorphin is literally morphine that your body makes. But in my studies of placebos, I came across the curious case of Mr. A true story. Mr. A was a 26-year-old man who was in a clinical trial of a new antidepressant medication. He had received a prescription bottle the day before, and that morning had impulsively taken all his pills, all 29 of them. He immediately felt he'd made a mistake, so asked his neighbor to drive him to the hospital. He was fearful he would die of an overdose. When he got to the hospital, he said, "Help me, I've taken all my pills," and then collapsed. As he fell, the empty prescription bottle fell from his pocket. The doctors had a look, and it confirmed, the label confirmed that the bottle contained pills to be taken as part of a clinical trial of a new antidepressant drug. But the label didn't say whether the pills were the placebo or the real drug. Mr. A's blood pressure was dangerously low, 80/40. His heart rate dangerously high, 110. He was breathing rapidly and lethargic. Over a period of 4 hours, he had to be given 6 liters of fluid to keep his blood pressure in the normal range. At that point, the head doctor from the clinical trial turned up and ascertained that Mr. A had taken placebos. So he hadn't overdosed on drugs, he had overdosed on fear. Within 15 minutes, his blood pressure and heart rate were normal. He was fully alert and able to leave the hospital. So it wasn't the drugs that caused him to have this physical reaction. It was fear, expecting something bad to happen. Now, the negative effect of expecting something bad to happen is called the nocebo effect. The nocebo effect is like the placebo's naughty cousin, whereas the placebo effect is the positive effect of anticipating something good. The nocebo effect is the negative effect of anticipating something bad. It turns out the nocebo effect is widespread. Together with some amazing colleagues, I did a mega study involving over 250,000 people like Mr. A who had all taken placebos, like sugar pills, in clinical trials. Now, in clinical trials, people don't know whether they got the real drug or the placebo. It turns out that half of these people got at least one negative side effect, like insomnia, anxiety, depression, pain. 1 in 20 of them, so 5%, had such bad negative side effects that they had to drop out of the trial altogether. Now, not all these side effects were nocebo effects. Some of them were artifacts due to the way we collect data about side effects in clinical trials. But we did some deeper analyses, and many of them were real nocebo effects, like self-fulfilling prophecies. Here's how it happens. In a clinical trial, people are forced to read about, to learn about everything bad that might happen to them. Now, in routine daily life, we ignore the small print if we buy something we think is safe, which is usually safe, like paracetamol. But if you read the small print, here's what might happen to you. Allergic reactions, mouth ulcers, difficulty breathing, and if that's not enough to scare you, it can also cause unexplained bleeding and hepatitis. So we ignore this stuff, it doesn't affect us, but if you're force-fed it, it can actually cause these bad things to happen. Brain scan studies are telling us more and more about how it happens. Basically, when you're scared something bad might happen, the fight or flight response in your body gets activated. Starting in your brain, the fight or flight response does all kinds of things to our brains and bodies, like making it easier to transmit pain messages from the body to the brain. Or it makes it easy to trick the brain, whereby normal sensations somewhere in the body get misinterpreted as pain or nausea, for example. This got me wondering, why were we designed, or why were we like this? Why were we so easily harmed by what amounts to words? It just didn't seem true that sticks and stones could break our bones, but words could never hurt us. Well, it turns out that nocebo effects are there to protect us. It's very important for our survival to react appropriately to negative stuff. For example, if someone says there's a saber-toothed tiger around the corner and he's hungry, he's coming to get you, you'd better run like hell, or else you might end up being the tiger's dinner. On the other hand, if someone tells you, you look fantastic, you're going to have an amazing day, and you don't react appropriately, you're not going to die. So basically, the nocebo effect is there to protect us. Our brains are hardwired that way. The problem arises when we can't distinguish between real tigers and imaginary ones. As you may have gathered, my research has always been personal. So this got me wondering, how can we apply this knowledge of nocebos to help us? Well, it turns out it's important to do this because we have thousands and thousands of thoughts every day. No one knows the exact number, but it's many thousands of thoughts. And most are negative. Regrets about the past, worries about the future, things we don't like, things we like but don't have and want. This basically means we're noceboing ourselves all day long. What's even worse, when we're in this negative state, we are more likely to express it to others, to be like that grumpy basketball coach who said I was too clumsy to play basketball. Fortunately, there is an antidote to the nocebo effect. This may surprise you. It's not positive thinking. Positive thinking is wonderful, but it can also increase anxiety if we try to engage with it, but don't succeed. Remember that the root cause of the nocebo effect is the fight or flight response. Well, the antidote to the fight or flight response is the relaxation response. The relaxation response also does all kinds of things to our brains and bodies. Good things, like helping the body produce happy chemicals like endorphins or dopamine. They make nocebo effects irrelevant by putting us in a spontaneously optimistic state. How do we achieve this? How do we induce this relaxation response? The best way is to meditate or pray for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, but the good news is that you can do it in just a few seconds. In fact, just taking 3 conscious, slow breaths is enough. Shall we do it together? So I'll ask you to breathe in as my hand comes up for about 3 seconds, and then exhale for about 6 or 7 seconds as my hand goes down. Preferably, breathe in and breathe out through your nose. Breathe in deeply, filling your lungs, and exhale completely, letting go. Inhale deeply. Exhale completely. Last time, inhale deeply. Exhale completely, letting go. You can carry on breathing slowly as I finish my talk, if you like. There's just one side effect of this technique I'll inform you of. Putting yourself in this positive, optimistic state will end up sending ripples of optimism and positivity to those around you, literally making the world a better place. Thank you.